Hey guys, welcome to my top 5 for Aetherdrift. I thought there was quite a few borderline cards that I thought it'd be interesting enough to do a top 5. Obviously, we only do these when we are finding interesting cards. So let's check them out. Obviously, do not forget, to check out Cast and Commons, a podcast where we'll probably talk about these cards as well. We talk about the challenges, and if they are same playing challenges, we will definitely talk about them. Also, do not forget if you are if you play Fortnite, use code TSL in the item shop. Great way to support me. Do not forget to like and subscribe, and also do not forget to check out Manatraders if you like to rent decks, etc. Use the referral link in the description below and use the code for 10% off for the first 2 months. Enough of that chilling. Right, so I have 4 honourable mentions, cards that I thought were like borderline potential, and then top 5, which I think will probably be either tested and played for a lot of them, and some of them will just obviously flicker in and out. So the first honourable mention we have here is Engine Rat. So this one's a very honourable mention, more for the type of decks I like to play. So for Mono Black Devotion or Mono Black Control, a black creature with Death Touch is very relevant, especially against Terra, i.e. see Guild Swarm Prowler, for example. So this card is got that level, but then also it's a great mana sink. So if you are playing Infinite Mana, if you are playing Mono Black Devotion where you obviously go late, this seems reasonable as a potential mana sink. So I'm actually interested to try this. And secondly, if you are playing zombies, this is a zombie rat as well, which does matter and does come up. So it could be a mana sink for zombies. That's why I want to shout this card out. There is quite a few zombies in this set, so I'm pretty interested in this. Anyways, that was just a small honourable mention for more the style of decks I like to play. Anyways, moving on to honourable mention number 2 is another card for zombies, which is Walking Sarcophagus. So it has this new mechanic, which is Start Your Engines or Speed, where basically when you play a card with Start Your Engines, you put your speed at 1, and then on every one of your turns that your opponent has lost life, you go up a speed. So over 4 turns, it goes from 1, and then if they've lost life, it'll then go to 2. And then next turn, if you've made them lose life, it'll go 3. And then if you go next turn, it'll go 4. When this is on max speed, i.e. max speed is 4, this creature gets +1/+2. So this becomes a 2-mana 3/3, which is reasonable stats, no other thing. But the real reason why I'm semi-excited about this is a 2-mana 3/3, which is fine over a few turns. The problem is, the best zombie is an artifact, and you want to play artifacts. As I tried earlier, in when Modern Horizons 3 came out, playing Refurb is really important, and having an artifact count that doesn't ruin your zombie count as well is really important. And this is why I think this card might be interesting, because now you've got retrofitted Transmigrant, and this, and Refurb, that I actually think some sort of artifact-themed zombie deck might be close to being playable. And that's the only reason why I like this card. I think its abilities and all that sort of stuff is semi-irrelevant. But being a zombie, that's an artifact. That's a 2-mana 3/3's reasonable stats. So this is why I'm interested in this. Very 2 honourable mentions. Anyways, honourable mention number 3 is Beast Rider Vanguard. So a lot of people might have been talking about this for like walls, etc., which I do think has potential. Not really for walls. Basically, this is a mana sink. This is an infinite mana sink that you can basically look at the top 3 cards, pick a permanent, put it in your hand. So if you have infinite mana, you draw your entire deck. That's could be instead of Secret Door, could be instead of the blue Draw 2, could be instead of Vivian Grizzly, I think the card's called, could be instead of Duskwatch Recruiter. All these cards, this is definitely the best one, but the problem with this is the fact that it costs 2 mana. If this costs 3 mana, I feel like this would 110% just go in walls. Because you just, literally, you can drift for this, drift for it, there's draw my deck. Easy as that. Because sometimes you don't even need, you might not need, maybe you can't combo off or whatever because they've got, I don't know. I have absolutely no idea. Maybe they've got a blue elemental blast for your Valakut Invoker. So what that means is then you then go for all your permanents, you draw a Mez Fiend,
and then you Mez Fiend their Blue Mental Blast and then play a Valakut Invoker. Like that sort of thing. But this line doesn't really work because it costs 2. So I could be intrigued in seeing this in something else. It's a payoff for Pilipala as well, just for note. Both halves are permanent. You have a mana sink of green. You draw your entire deck, reveal every permanent, and then do whatever you want. So there is that. You could potentially play something with a mana sink if you don't have infinite mana, like Elves, potentially. I don't know. There is a lot of options, which is why I think it's an honorable mention. It's a card to keep an eye on, because this is definitely one of the better cards to have this sort of effect, this mana sink effect. So that's why I'm intrigued in keeping an eye on it. And then my fourth honorable mention, I think, is the Wreckage Wickerfolk. I did enjoy this card, and I was I would have 100% been higher on this card and probably put it in the top 5 if it was a zombie. But the fact that it's not a zombie, but it is an artifact creature, having a relevant stat line, i.e. 2 mana 1/3 flyer, that surveils 2 and gives you value, because as we all know, surveilling is actually relatively important, is pretty crucial. So there's many different decks you could possibly play this in. There's Affinity as a 1/3 blocker against flyers. That's not irrelevant. Can block Refurb, can block all the fairies, etc. And Surveil 2, which is pretty good. Obviously, you've got Blood Fountain value, etc. there. 2, you could play this in Dredge as a flying blocker, which we all know Dredge is weak to flyers and it can mill 2. Surveil 2 is fine. It's not amazing, but it's fine. There is other decks like Mono Black or Gardens or mid-range decks that this could be an Augur of Bolas style effect for, because you can sacrifice it as a creature and artifact. This card has surprisingly good uses. I just do wish it was a more relevant creature type than Scarecrow. But other than that said, I do think it has other potential. So I'm really intrigued to see if this card does make the cut and we do see this scene play. This is probably the one that I'm closest on and probably maybe should have been in my top 5 anyways. But anyways, that is the honourable mentions that we have here. I'm pretty excited to see them anyways because I like to keep an eye on it. But let's move on to the top 5. Number 5 here is a Vishkar Raceway. So this is a land with the start your engine mechanic, which I explained before, which taps for a colourless, which isn't that great. But if you are on max speed, you pay 3, you discard a card and draw a card. So you rummage. The potential for this is probably in something like, I don't know, I'm thinking more Madness, but I'm not sold completely because colourless is quite bad and it's very colour intensive and doesn't really do anything until you're on max speed. But I could see as a one-of as a way to grind in them long games. The other one is potentially Dredge, but again, I'm not 100% sold because colourless is really bad. And they don't really have the life loss sort of things to get max speed. Like, you're not very often, you can't reliably go, I'll chip for one with a Sail Wayfinder, chip for one with a Prowler, etc. So that is something, that also doesn't count. So say if you play Sail Wayfinder, and then start attacking, and then start attacking, and it doesn't tick up, like the max speed's not just part of the game anymore. You have to play as start your engines first, and then it'll then work. So that makes it infinitely worse. If you just started on one, and then your engine's revved, and you got faster or whatever as you were attacking, except whatever it is, this would be slightly better. So then by turn 4, you could have had max speed before you've even played this land. We'll be having a different story, and I do think this would be really good. But with the way it works, you have to play the starter engines, then lose life, etc., and then do it. I think this is probably not going to see play, but it is a card that definitely could see play, especially as a one-of in either Dredge or Madness, etc. So that is number 5. Number 4 is another land, which is Night Market, and I'm a lot higher on this than probably what most people are. This is like a pseudo Thrive and Grove sort of card. The land enters tapped, you choose a colour, and you can add a mana of any colour, but it also has Cycling 3. So I don't think this will see mass amounts of play, but it's mainly for Tron, especially multicoloured Tron or Tron with multicoloured. So there's like Ultratron, which has Polluted Mire, which is the swamp. It's enters tapped, and it taps for black, or you can pay 2 to cycle it. There's also the blue one, Remote Isle, which like Flickertron plays. I do feel like this card could probably see play and replace those. because they are multicolored Tron decks, it's a fixin' for you. So you can flicker it, change color, and you can also flicker it and change color as well. So it's a way to get out of screw and all that sort of stuff. So this is why I'm much higher on this card. I do think it has a lot of utility in Tron, especially if you are running multicolored or strapped for color. Like mono black Tron, for example, could run Polluted Mire, but it also runs red and potentially green for like Weathering the Side and Fangor Marauder, etc. Where this could play it as that color source, like the off-color sources, while also being an on-color source if you need it to be. But then if you don't need to be, it's still just a Polluted Mire that cycles. It, however, does cost one, but it does provide one more, but provides utility. So that's why I think this card will probably see play. Moving on to number 3, which is Magmakin Artillerist. Correct me if I'm saying that right. Just trying to clarify, this card has also been what's the word I'm looking for? This card's been talked about quite a lot recently because of the combo potential with Ophidian's Eye or Snake Umber, etc. Where if you go to your end step and you have 8 cards, you discard to hand size, this shoots for 1, the Snake Umber triggers, you draw a card, you discard a card again to hand size, rinse and repeat, and then basically deal damage equal to the number of cards in your library. I'm intrigued by this card. I don't think it'll see play in Madness and Cycle Storm, as other people have discussed. I think the colours are wrong, it costs too much, and it doesn't really work in like Madness, etc. It's just too expensive. But like it does ping for 1 on the cycle, so it's like sort of okay as that sort of card. But I do think the combo potential, I've underestimated 2-card combos in the past, and this is a combo that can happen in your turn as well. Like you can literally, like in your turn on the same turn, i.e. like Brood Skill. And those type of combos are where they're much more like, it's not like Pilly Pala where you have to wait a turn, etc. So this gives it much more potential, and I'm much more interested in trying this sort of combo deck. So I'm really excited to try this, and I do think it might be playable. Unsure on how good it is compared to obviously Brood Skill, etc. But I'm excited to try this combo deck, especially the fact that you can just discard a hand size and go off. If you have a discard outlet, great. That sort of starts the ball rolling. But yeah, I'm excited to try this. I think this combo with Ophidian's Eye or Snake Umber or Curiosity style effects is where you want to be, and I think this is a pretty interesting combo. Moving on to number 2 is Chitin Gravestalker. This card is yet another Necromass, Writhen Necromass, I think the card's called. It's a Gurmag Angler style effect where basically it just reduces the cost and it's a 1-mana 5/4, but it also has cycling. It does include artifacts, which is very relevant. You are playing black, Deadly Dispute is playable. You are playing Ichor Wellspring effects, etc., etc. So yeah, I'm excited to try this, and I think the fact that you are getting close, one thing to note, you are getting close to a critical mass of these style effects. You've got Gurmag, you've got Writhen Necromass, you've got Chitin Gravestalker. You are getting close to basically playing a mono black terror, where instead of milling spells, you are milling creatures, but you are playing black, which is a better colour for Duress, Snuff Out, etc. The only conflict is those type of cards that are really good right now and making this cheaper or the Writhen Necromass cheaper. But nonetheless, you are getting close to a critical mass, so I'm excited that I think this card might be playable, and if not, it is very close to being playable. Worst case scenario with this card, it cycles itself to make itself cost cheaper. Yeah, I think this card's pretty good, and I'll be surprised if this, as well as this like mono black terror or whatever, or even alternate win con for Dredge or mono black Dredge, etc., like all that sort of stuff, doesn't actually come to fruition. So yeah, that's my number 2. And finally, my number 1 is probably not that exciting, as in, I wouldn't be surprised if people didn't think this was number 1, because this card is probably the best card in the set, and that is Grim Bauble. For those that don't know what this is, it's a 1 black artifact, and it's when it enters, target creature opponent controls gets -2/-2, and you can pay 2 to black to sack this artifact to Surveil 2. The sacking artifact Surveil 2 is just a late game thing. It's more like an Omen of the Dead late game Surveil. You know, you're in the last ends. But what this is more importantly for, Tithe and Blade is really bad right now, and Black White Blade has this sort of engine of refurb, and if it doesn't go off with the refurb, it's got nothing to go with it. Because Tithe Blade is so bad, you basically ended up flickering a Lembus, etc. Where this actually is reasonable, especially against mono red, especially against other decks. It obviously doesn't kill Rythan Chrysalis, it doesn't kill Nyxborn Hydra or what have you, but it does do a lot of killing things. And -4/-4, i.e., play it, bounce it, play it again, isn't out the question, and that kills a lot of things. Yeah, obviously, you can kill Mirror Enforcer that way. It can obviously kill all the like Crackland Shaman, Refurb Familiar your opponent, all that sort of stuff. Anything out of mono red, basically. This card does a lot of heavy lifting, and I will be surprised if this is not a 4 in Black-White Blade. I wouldn't be surprised if it's seen playing other things like Affinity, but I'm less excited about that because it might not reach that far. Because obviously you're not bouncing it, you're doing anything with it, you're just deadly disputing it or whatever. So this is just going to be -2/-2, and it's more likely an anti-mono red tool for Affinity. But I think in Black-White Blade, this card is insane, and I'll be surprised if this card does not see play. And guys, that's it. That's my top 5 with 4 honorable mentions. So my top 9, I guess. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Short and sweet as ever. And do not forget to like and subscribe. And I will see you guys for the next video. Peace.